It's functional. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you have practiced brainstorming and brain mapping over this weekend. At least you gave it a try because that's something that can make a difference. So let us start with the discussion. So first and foremost, any doubts associated with what has been taught so far, feel free to type it. I shall be supporting you with the component. With respect to do's and don'ts of essay, that was the segment that was left in the previous session. I requested all of you to read it and come, and if there are any doubts, you should feel free to ask it. Now, with respect to this given subsegment, do's and don'ts of essay, as you can see, it's written that handwriting, grammar, punctuation marks, they do make a difference. They make a qualitative difference in terms of, I would say, wholesome presentation. Please try to understand, as I had said, that essay is a piece of literature. So it's not like GS that you can just enlist the points as 1, 2, 3, 4, bullet, bullet, bullet. In fact, it should never ever be used in an essay. Anyone converting the paraphrased component into like bullet points, it is going to backfire for sure. And why will it backfire? Because you have to present your own narrative, your understanding related to a topic. And in the process, language is going to be playing the most crucial role. It is going to play as the, I would say, key role. So it is language that is put to evaluation in a big way. And in such a situation, if a student is like, let us say, not working on the possibility of language development, then it can backfire. And let us consider for a while. In your first page of essay, suppose there are some errors, like let's say spelling mistakes, let's say preposition going haywire. Okay, students generally mess up with prepositions. So let us consider there are spelling mistakes or prepositions or sentence formation that is creating a problem with respect to that. What really was experienced is that, let us say I evaluated the first page and then I realized that there was a problem in the preposition here and the sentence formation there and a spelling mistake. I ignore it in the first page. Then second page again 2, 3 mistakes. Third page again 2, 3. Fourth, then fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. By the time you complete the essay, you are intellectually bleeding. So even though the ideas were great, they were brilliant, but the expression ruined the wholesome experience. And that's why if you have the potential to write a great essay, kindly work on your language skills as well. If you're struggling with your language, with your spellings, with your grammar, all those segments, trust me, that's something which is not going to be in your favor in the long run. So it is advisable that kindly get into the practice of probably writing in a better way, writing in a more exhaustive way. That's what I can suggest. Just a second. Yeah. So writing in a more exhaustive way, writing in a better way. Because when you get into the mode of, just a second. Yes. That's it. Because it's really, really hot. I don't know why I'm feeling the heat, but it's really hot. No, I can't see anything beyond this. This is just I who's feeling this. It is etsing, what if we swing? Maybe. Is it working? No, I don't know. Probably the AC needs servicing. Okay. So, let's say in the given process, when we are speaking of this given situation, if you're writing good expression in terms of grammar, in terms of spelling, then what happens is that when the ideas are also great and the expression is also good, it creates a wholesome engagement. You feel like reading para after para. You keep connecting one idea with the other. Otherwise, with the rigors of grammar, the ideas and the interconnectivity, the wholesome like, flow gets impacted massively. So it is advisable that kindly pay attention to the language part, like essentially. That's very, very important. Now, moving ahead further, when we speak of it, we all can reflect upon these other words like constitutional principles, constructive criticism. Constitutional principles, never ever compromise with it. If you're compromising with the constitutional principles, you are anti-state. You are, like, let us say you read some post which is against secularism, and you read it and your young mind absorbs all the crap, and then you start crapping that in the paper as if you're some intellectual and you have like you're loaded with the logic. Trust me, you're not a think tank. You are not going to be a part of the think tanks. You are aspiring for civil services, and in civil services you have to preserve, protect and uphold the constitutional values. So do not mess up with the constitutional values. At all times, your writing or in interview, your speech should be guided by the constitutional values. That's one thing. Other than that, when we further move ahead, you can also reflect upon the subsegment associated with constructive criticism. Related to constructive criticism, we can further think about what segments can be connected. So under this constructive criticism, you all can like consider and probably substantiate. Constructive criticism, I can say, is associated with like, when you are like developing the content of anything, okay, you have to look into the strengths and weaknesses of it. Constructive criticism is not merely criticizing. It is, after criticizing, you are proposing the solutions. Criticism without solutions is not a healthy mark of a balanced thinker, a balanced person, moreover, an officer who can bring about meaningful change in the system. So, when we are speaking of any scope or space for constructive criticism, what we imply to say is that whatever you write, it should be continually be guided by the space and scope of something which is impressive, something which is wholesome, something which is having a precision, like some kind of balance, whereby you can see that the strengths are also equally guarded, protected and taken care of, as much as we can say you are hyphenating the weaknesses, so that you work upon the weaknesses and create, like, let us say, a better possibility per se. All right. ये AC वर्क नहीं कर रहा है क्या? एक बार प्लीज चेक करिए. मे बी मैं बाहर से आई हूँ इसलिए, या तो इसको सर्विसिंग ढूंढ रहा है. यस प्लीज प्लीज प्लीज. ठीक है, थैंक यू. देखिए फिर बैठ के. ठीक है, नो वरीज. All right. So, with respect to this given subsegment, when we are talking about it, just keep constructive criticism with yourself. A lot of students, they ask that, ma'am, can we criticize the government? Well, no one, neither the people nor the government are above. Okay, so when we are speaking of it, we all can see that when I'm talking about constructive criticism, what I imply to say that neither the people nor the government, anyone, is above the interest of the state. Okay, if anyone is challenging or threatening the interest of the state, then in that situation, we all can consider that you are supposed to first talk about it, why the challenge is emerging, and then how to surmount it. Okay, so please do understand this given possibility, that whensoever you are discussing a specific component, please feel free to raise the given concerns, the given possibilities and the given parameters associated with whatever is unfolding, and after that kindly substantiate, kindly like reflect upon what more interventions are required. So discuss the challenges and problems and then the solutions. It is very, very essential. If anyone says that will criticizing the government backfire, well, you are not interested to criticize the government, quote unquote, per se. You are not challenging or threatening the system. You are aspiring to cleanse the possibilities, the negativities that might have crept in the system, because that's the purpose of a bureaucrat, to improve upon the system. And how are you going to improve upon it? Identifying the mistakes and working upon it. Another subsegment which you should remember is like Yojana. The magazine is published by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And in Yojana, whenever a scheme is published, what is the scheme, what is the objective, then what are the basic, we can say, segments that needs to be taken care of, implemented, who are the supporting bodies. And after all that information, what is shared, if you take a note of it, what is shared after that is that what kind of, we can say, challenges are existing, drawbacks or limitations related to the scheme is existing. And after discussing all those limitations and challenges, then we all can see that what is discussed further is associated with, we can consider, like after discussing all of it, we can consider there are suggestions or way forward that is given in the Yojana. Similarly, we all can see that a similar proposition is proposed related to, other than the Yojana magazine. You can also observe that such a situation is given or it is proposed even in, we can consider economic survey. In economic survey, annually when the report is published, you can just see that in the survey, they will be talking about the limitations or the schemes that were not implemented properly or the interventions which are still necessary. All of it you can find there in the economic survey. So if there was no space and scope to talk about the limitations, it won't have been published by the government of India itself. So no one should feel scared to get into constructive criticism, whether in GS or in essay. All right. So Nimai, I received two questions that you have raised. That can you use brainstorming in GS paper if you can't understand the question of the GS paper? If you're running short of content in a GS paper and you are unable to recall the core insights related to it, to a certain extent, not necessarily fitting all 150 words or 250 words of the question paper, but at least writing something sizable, 50 or 100 words accordingly. For that, yes, like this component of brain mapping will help. It will help you to like consolidate some information which is relevant, which is not unnecessary, and which can serve the purpose of, like, let us say, substantiating the content. So yes, you can do that. Another question which Nimai, you are saying that when I write answers, I make cutting. How to avoid cutting? I mean, there's nothing like avoiding cutting. The only thing is don't cut it 3-4 times. That's unnecessary. Or don't try to make a flower out of it. Many people cut it like this. Okay, that's not needed. One strike and that's more than enough. And rather than writing incorrect, if someone is reflecting, and after reflecting, if the person is realizing that what I have written is not so proper, and then the person is striking it out, it's perfectly fine. Third thing is, when you are very thorough with the content and you frame the sentence beforehand, the tendency to strike out something will lessen. So if you really understand a component, you can, like, paraphrase it mentally, or you can phrase the sentences, you can create the sentences mentally, and then you start writing. Such mistakes can be avoided. All right. So information should be updated and authenticated. Like, let's say you're writing on poverty and you are mentioning National Family Health Survey 4, which is correct, but the National Family Health Survey 5 has been published, that too 2 years back. It has been in news for almost 2 years now. So if someone is not talking about National Family Health Survey 5 and the multidimensional poverty index based on NFHS 5, rather than that a person is quoting NFHS 4, the examiner may feel that why is the child not so updated? Why is the information like relatively old? So yeah, that's something which I think is implicit, and it should be understood anyhow. Again, with respect to this, use examples, facts and quotes. Not too many, not too much that it overwhelms the examiner, but in moderation, examples, facts, information, it creates an engaging bit with the essay. We read it and we are like, wow, this was fun to read. We could understand and perceive it thoroughly. And a person could understand that the quality of the content is really good. All right. So that's something which you can connect with. Again, one paragraph, one idea. What do we imply by this? So one paragraph, one idea implies that when you are writing and like you're substantiating the content, one para, one idea is indicative of the fact that when you're like substantiating the content, you are like not blowing the content out of proportion. That's what it implies. It also implies that there is no mismanagement. Too long paragraphs does not engage, it does not look interesting. So what is advisable is write a given para. It doesn't matter what should be the ideal size of the para. A para can be of 20 words, 40 words, 90 words, 80 words, 50 words, anything. But do take care of one basic fact. Do not write one page and entire page is stuffed because the para was too long. If your page is getting too long, it is advisable. I mean, if the para is getting too long, then it is advisable that break open that segment or that part into 2 points. Suppose you're writing on education and related to the economic aspect or maybe social aspect, you have so many points that you have to write 150 words. But in the process of writing 150 words, you're going to engage 2 pages. So it is advisable that please take a pause, break open the social or the economic point into 2 parts. And after breaking it into 2 parts, even one segment or one dimension, one para is also not necessary. That's the disclaimer which I'm sharing. That if the dimension is too stretched, too long, even create subdimensions, break it into 2 parts, but let at least be 2 paras visible in the passage. Okay, or rather in the essay. Every page, let there be at least 2 paras. It should look like somewhere the para changed. That's what I'm saying. So that it looks fresh, it looks engaging. The entire page is like da 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 da, da stuffed up. Then next page. So let there be some kind of pause. Let there be some kind of break. Let there be some change of para. Small paras don't hurt. If you feel, oh my god, what if I've just written one sentence of 20 words and I want to change the para? Will it look proper? Yes, there's no harm in it. No harm in it. Or someone feels that in one page, suppose I finished a previous point was of 70 words, so I wrote 50 words in another page. In this page, I wrote 20 words, and then I started with a topic, and that sub dimension took like 40 words or 50 words, and then again I changed the para and started with third dimension. So 3 paras, will it look proper? Yes, there's no harm in it. So there is no ideal size of a para. There is nothing like ideal breakup of points, and a point can be very tiny, a point can blow up. If the point has blown up, then rather than writing 1 para, 1 dimension, you can write 2 paras, 1 dimension, or 3 paras, 1 dimension. But let it not be a continuous flow whereby pages are getting filled, but there is no change in para. It looks too monotonous. Okay, so break the monotony. Logically, the like essay should be connected, there should be flow, there should be some kind of logical order, chronology. I'll be discussing that in organization of essay, so you don't need to worry about that. Then use simple sentences. One breath rule. What do I imply by this so-called one breath rule? One breath rule, it implies that when we are speaking of it, it implies that don't write such long and winding sentences that a person reads, and after reading, the person is mentally asking that, like, what does this person want to say? Okay, so like you can just like think of that given possibility that uh, the person is able to connect, the person is able to understand. Okay, ये नहीं कि भाई ये कहना क्या चाहता है. Okay, that should not happen. A person should be able to understand like what you aspire to communicate. That is something which is there. All right. So with respect to this, when we are discussing about the given subsegment, you can probably work towards this given dimension. All right. So with respect to the given possibility, we all can like talk about, just a second. So you can just, yeah. So as discussed, I hope all of you can like connect with that given possibility, right? And with respect to this given possibility, we all can talk about the dimension associated with. Actually, I'm trying to find out a sentence which one of the students who appeared for the interview, without taking his name, I just want to read it out before all of you, so that you see that how even a good aspirant who like holds the possibility of getting selected can also mess it up in the sense the kind of, I would say, the kind of language that the child uses. It's so engaging, and yet it's so like, I would say, long. The sentence becomes unnecessarily lengthy. So yes, I found it. So the topic is when we are no longer able to change a situation. Okay, we are challenged to change ourselves. Okay, this was the topic that was given to the child in the test. So when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Okay, I repeat the third time so that all of you listen to it attentively, because I won't be reading it again. Okay, so just listen to it attentively and let us reflect where the content, despite being qualitatively good, engaging, where the content went wrong. So when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So with respect to this given statement, when we are reflecting upon the same, we all can see like what this child is communicating. So here the student has written, I'm just reading it out in between the para. Okay, so the student has written, presently humanity stands at another significant epoch of human existence, that is the initial stage of fourth industrial revolution, the artificial revolution, full stop. Then it is evident from history that after initial resistance and attempt to change the situation to one's own advantage, comma, if the situation appears not to change, comma, then change of self becomes the only viable option, whereby the present context of survival and adaptation, it becomes all the more important. Are you seeing that? Language is good, the capability to understand the topic is great, but the sentence is becoming too long and haywire. So I immediately wrote the sentence is too long, and hence the essence is getting diluted. Okay. Furthermore, because this problem was not only done once, it happened multiple times. Because a person who is into the habit of writing too long sentences gets into it. So this student, he has written, I'll further read it out. Initially, efforts were made to keep the economic system as socialist as possible, but situations changed, and when it breached the control of the environment, sorry, of the government, it was prudent to liberalize the economy for survival and the overall prosperity of the nation. Okay. So, and when, if, multiple conjunctions. One conjunction is more than enough. Put a full stop. Reduce the variable. Once you are, I'm not talking write sentences like in 4 or 5 words like Ram aam khata hai, Ram eats a mango. Okay, not something like that. What I imply to say is usage of one conjunction is fine. And one breath rule means you are able to read the sentence in one go. And when you are able to read the sentence in one go, you are able to understand what the sentence implies. Okay. And when you are unable to finish the sentence in one go, this problem can. All right. Fine. So moving further ahead, you can just see this given subsegment and further like reflect upon the same. So here, when we are discussing about this, So be creative and original in your viewpoints. What is implied is that try to make the content engaging and fresh. That's what. For this creativity's sake, I'll be talking a lot of things today related to types of introduction. Prior to that, what is advisable related to this component of creativity? When you read newspapers, magazines, sometimes think tanks, they come up with some amazing solutions. Enlist those solutions, memorize those solutions. For optional papers, you have to quote thinkers or you have to quote who has said the idea to validate the point. Okay, and then you quote that XYZ person, or in this and this newspaper or magazine this was published. Okay, so you validate your point by discussing where it is published or who has written, who has done the survey. But when you're writing an essay, it's not necessary all the time you have to recall like who has said it. You don't have to necessarily present everything as a borrowed idea in the form of quotation or in the form of like borrowing the information. Sometimes you can present the same ideas, simplifying it in your own language as your own. And that's also one of the ways to look creative in the essay. Okay, by borrowing the ideas, but not necessarily using the same language. Okay, borrow the wisdom, present it in your own language. That is also possible. Okay, so again, with respect to this, we can see put emphasis on points that are strongly supporting the central idea. Means the most important core points, it is as advisable, like keep it towards the beginning of the essay, towards the starting of the essay. Do not try to write it towards the end. Many students feel, I'll first write the introduction, then certain points, and the most important idea towards the end. No, 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 no. You're supposed to impress upon the examiner, and there are like 16, 17 pages. So let not the examiner meander and like, get transported page after page to arrive at it. No. It will look or it will seem as if like by default you somehow reach to the point. No. Whatever is the most important idea, most significant point, write it towards the beginning. Immediately after the introduction, try to write it towards the beginning. That is something which will like bring about a difference. That is something which will create some kind of difference. You can understand that, right? Again, other than that, when we are speaking of it, you can also think about like so the strongest point should be stated in the beginning of the paras, and make sure that the paras follow a logical sequence. And how to create the logical sequence? One point connected to the other with powerful connectors. Powerful connectors means we can say the effective usage of conjunctions, okay, or if not the conjunctions, also effective usage of, we can say, phrasal expressions and language, to which you all can notice how the NCERT paragraphs are connected. The paras written in NCERT, how one idea is written and then it leads to the second idea, and then further when they are changing the para and connecting the next idea with the previous one, what kind of language the writer uses. So next time when you are reading the NCERT, do not notice the NCERT for the sake of the content that's written. Along with content, pay attention to language, because that's the minimum level of language that you are supposed to bear. That's the minimal level of engagement that you are supposed to maintain, even in terms of how to like connect the like concerned paragraphs. All right. Now, can we underline any data, quotes, or important keywords, etc. in essay? Yeah. Spandan, that was the reason why I had given you 2 minutes for polishing the essay. Remember essay technology, the breakup, in which towards the beginning when I gave the breakup, what was the 7th point? The second last point, if you remember, in essay technology, that was polishing the essay. And I had explained what has to be done in polishing the essay, right? That was associated with underlining the key points or the data or anything which you find is relevant and the examiner should be paying attention to, right? So that's what. Can we write number-wise points in a para in an essay? Spandan, did you join the session late? Because it seems so. I had mentioned this half an hour back. I mean, when I started the session, then at around 11:07 or 11:10, I had explained this point, that you should never write bullet points and number wise 1, 2, 3, 4, or bullet points. You should never do that. Please be punctual and be in the class in time so that you don't miss out any important idea that is being shared. If truth be spoken, what happens is all those students who join the session late, I say that to offline students as well. that when you come to a class 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late, every single sentence that I try to speak, I try to make it relevant and connected to the larger frame of ideas I have to share with all of you. So, and no student who has attended a session like 1 hour 45 minutes will purposefully revisit the recorded session, recorded video that I missed the first 10 minutes or in between 10 minutes. Let me listen to those 10 minutes. Like, हाँ बस ऐसे ही कुछ हो रहा होगा, बस simple basic ही बात चल रहा होगा, छूट गया तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है, right? So that kind of attitude when we have, we do not even bother to revisit the session. In that case, those ideas that have been shared earlier, they get missed. So that it happened to one of the students, I remember. Probably first day that child was not there, and in the previous session on Friday, she asked some question which was associated with a detailed discussion I had taken on the first day. So I was like, why don't you revisit the first day lecture, the recording of it? So you can sense by the question when who was present, and present doesn't mean only logging in the session. It also means being alert, active, attentive. So I had discussed this, Pandan. Okay, no point wise writing, no number wise writing that breaks the flow, that does not look like an essay, and this is not a GS paper. Language is also paid attention to. Marks are evaluated on the basis of the quality of language that you are engaging with. All right, now as we move ahead with respect to this, these are certain expressions which I have enlisted, how you can connect one para with the other. Goodness. Now the room has got pleasant. Actually, the room was so hot that I just got dehydrated. Because it's hot outside, you come here, you want at least the AC functional. Now, anyway, so with respect to this, when we are discussing about this given component associated with the academic style of writing, okay, so with respect to it, you can see there are ways through which you can connect one para with the next one. So you can see there seems to be no compelling reason to argue that ... or maybe the argument can be made that and then ... something like that. Again, you can talk about the current research on and the topic that is there, the most common argument against this or in favor of this. Again, there is a growing body of evidence to support ... So you can memorize similar such expressions that enables you to write a powerful essay. Then you can see the component of don'ts of an essay. Okay, do's and don'ts of an essay when we speak of it. Okay, so with respect to don'ts of an essay, what you should not do is avoid any kind of extreme opinions. Any extreme opinions when we are speaking of this given dimension, any absolute or extreme opinion which is definitely against the constitution, against the spirit of our wholesome existence, just avoid those extreme examples, because when the examples they become too extreme, you can see there is a visible problem, there is a visible challenge associated with how we are living it or surviving it. Okay, so avoiding extreme examples is a necessity. Again, flow charts, maps, diagrams, okay, avoid all of it. I have discussed this earlier also, and multiple times rather, why flow charts, diagrams, maps are unnecessary in essay. Essay is a piece of literature, and across the world, across the exams, wherever essay is asked or any essay book that you purchase ever, not only related to UPSC exams, any national, international level exam, you will never find flowcharts, diagrams, maps to support the content. This is not GS. This is a piece of literature. So all the communication that you are establishing with the examiner should be done through the language. If your language is effective, even if there is no flowchart, diagram, map, still you can get amazing marks. But despite the flowchart, diagram or map, okay, if the content is shallow, the engagement is superficial, the insights are not thought provoking, okay, creative, engaging, then in that situation you'll end up losing marks. So it is advisable, do not get into any such activity which disturbs the very possibility of the, we can say, flow or the kind of impact that ought to be generated, right? So this is what. Then comes abbreviations. When I speak of abbreviations, do not write words like GOVT dot, like the short form of government. Some people write GOVT dot. For people, people write PPL dot people. Don't do that. You can write WHO. You can write WTO. You can write UN. All that is perfectly fine. The standard abbreviations accepted across the world, that's fine to like accept them. But anything associated with these expressions will backfire for you. Then don't overwhelm your essay with information, okay, and facts. Do not address the reader. What do I imply by saying so? Don't overwhelm your essay with information and facts and do not address the reader. What do I imply to say by this one? Okay, so this one actually suggests this very fact that any kind of essay that is being written, any kind of content that is being written, okay, please remember it is not a GS paper. So if you're writing too many facts, like for example, there is an essay on women empowerment, and you start writing all the women across history who have been successful, who have been quite effective in their contribution. So like with respect to those women, when we are speaking of them, you can just understand the kind of impact it can generate if you, para after para after para, you're reading like the list of successful women, like you're writing Indira Gandhi, and then you're writing something like, let's say, Kiran Bedi, and then you're further moving ahead, you're writing Rani Jhansi or Lakshmi Bai, and then you're talking about the like Lata Mangeshkar. I mean, like women who are successful from all walks of life. You're going on and on and on. So from the present prime minister to like ex-prime minister to like we can say all the women who have been bureaucrats, IAS, IPS, etc., etc. If you're going on and listing them, that is going to backfire. That is not something which is going to impress upon the examiner. Write facts, but don't overwhelm with facts. Okay, write names, but do not overwhelm with the names. Write like I would say engaging insights, but only write as much as is supportive of the critical analysis, as much as is impressive. Okay, because remember, this is not a GS answer going on. In the end of the day, it is a piece of literature which should be like engaging the attention with insights, a sense of critical awareness, a sense of, I would say, curiosity. So, and for the rousing all these emotions, facts are not the only tool. There are other tools as well in which you can engage. So that's something which all of you can connect with when we are talking about this given possibility. Again, you can say do not address the reader. All right. Do not address the reader. Do not address the reader means don't write as you can see, as you may say, as you may consider, as you may perceive. Why? Is the person your friend who is reading your paper? So you're not supposed to write as you can see, as you can observe, as so nothing of that sort. Why? Because if you have to like you're like, but what if ma'am I want to write something similar or my language is getting built in around that? Write it as it can be seen, as it can be observed, as it can be stated. There is a way to write this given dimension. Okay, again, do not use first person, means don't write that according to me or as I can say, okay, it was observed by me. So like anything as such, it is not like a very, I would say, healthy expression. It is not a matured expression. Rather, every time when you're writing, I can say that, I may say that, according to me, it shows a hint of narcissism. Who are you? Okay, who are you? In the system, it is not hero worshipping that is allowed. It is the teamwork that helps. So rather than writing according to I, according to me, what is advisable is you can always write that as it can be said, as it has been observed, as it can be suggested. Okay, so that's what when we speak of this. Okay, so do not use first person, not at all. Okay, just write something like as it can be observed, as it can be said, so like that. Further, you can say do not go too far generalizing the topic at the start. Never ever do that. Okay. When you are generalizing the content or generalizing the topic towards the beginning, okay, means do not write average points or regular points or miscellaneous points towards the beginning. That is called generalizing. Don't write two distant points or points that could have been written in the midst of the essay. Don't write it towards the beginning. Otherwise, it looks too generalized and simplistic and engagement with the given topic. All right. That is what can be observed over here when we speak of it. Further, you can see refrain from narrating very long incidents or stories in the essay. Like, because when I'll be discussing types of introduction, I'll be talking about the, we can say, the types of introduction which can be based on anecdotes. Anecdotes are like short stories. But when I say short stories, it should not be more than like probably 70 words or 80 words. Means it should be over within the page, the first page, and preferably within half the page, not more than that. Okay. And when I say half the page, that means exactly 45 to 50 words, not more than that. Means just 3 to 4 sentences. That's it. When you're writing an incident or a short story, see to it, it is very abbreviated in nature. Frame the entire narrative in your mind, connect it with effective conjunctions, create a gist of the entire story, and just write the gist. It is not like a kahani likho pratyogita or a story writing competition that you are going on and on writing a story. All right. Avoid writing stories at all times. Okay. Avoid writing stories at all times. This is what can be suggested. All right. So, you can write stories, but short stories. All right. You can write incidents, short incidents. Stories or incidents should be engaging, interesting in nature. It should be like fun. You read it and you're like, wow, this was some fun. Okay. That is what can be suggested. Now, further, when we are moving ahead, you can see this. So, do not use the like this given possibility. Again, we can see do not use irrelevant facts or figures. I have already shared that. Okay. So don't write a fact just because you know it. Like if you remember, we were discussing on the very first day, patriarchy is the least noticed, yet the most significant structure of social inequality. And suppose someone starts giving some random facts associated with gender inequality with respect to maybe like someone is giving some fact associated with the census, population census, and comparing the sex ratio and gets into the details of sex ratio. What was the sex ratio in like 1951 after independence, and then the sex ratio in 1991, and then the sex ratio in 2000 and 11, the last census, and maybe the census website which portrays the sex ratio at 2018-19. If you're getting into any such mess, it's unnecessary. Okay. Because even though the facts are great, they are too irrelevant. They are little distant from the core concerns of the topic. Okay. You can always substantiate it just in one sentence, that the present declining of sex ratio is also a mark of increase in the intensity of violence towards women, whereby after independence, the 1961 census, the of, like, let us say, you can say children. Okay. So the 1961 child sex ratio was a healthy 976, whereas today's child sex ratio is somewhere struggling with 919. Okay. So when you're writing just in one sentence, it becomes too impressive. So when you're talking about explaining with facts and figures, see to it, it's not too stretched, it is relevant to the content, it's not too far-fetched, and it's somewhere connected to the core or the essence of the topic. Don't write things just because you know, write because it is needed. Okay, then. So further, you can also see that conclusion should not be forced upon. It should reflect the points that is associated with rest of the essay, and then avoid introducing any new information or idea in the concluding paragraph, because the concluding paragraph should have a sunset effect. I mean, after reading the concluding paragraph, a person should be motivated to think, a person should be motivated to imagine that, it has been so far a very great experience. Like, you can see the sunrise happens, there is hope, there is rigor, there is the possibility of working hard in the future. When the day is there, so during daylight we all keep working related to all our, we can say, different types of job and engagement that we have. We work for hours together, we like try to give in our best, and as the day starts like getting over, there is a sense of closure of work, completion of work, and then there is more like getting back to home, right? So a similar expression should be there with an essay. When you are discussing an essay, encourage all kinds of points, encourage all kind of dimensions, but after encouraging all kinds of points and dimensions and insights, get into the possibility of, I would say, encouraging some kind of thought provoking dimension or possibility, encouraging some kind of insight which is, I would say, creating some meaningful engagement, and there is a sense of closure. So towards the end, you can give suggestions, you can give way forward, but don't introduce a new dynamics, a new point, a new challenge, a new potentially controversial idea. Anything as such that you have to write, bring it towards the beginning of the para, or in the midst of the para, not in the end. End should be having a sense of closure with suggestions, some larger than life values, certain broader human principles, some time tested ideals and morals. That's what should be there. All right. So this is associated with the component of don'ts. So if yes, some people ask that, ma'am, can we put headings and subheadings? Well, truth if be spoken, heading and subheading looks very kiddish and unnecessary if written like introduction and then writing the introduction, or someone is writing the social perspectives, so social underlining, writing the social, political, then writing political. It looks very kiddish, man. Paraphrase it, and as you change the para, we know the idea is changing, and as you underline few key points, we know what it is associated with. So the moment you change the para, we know the idea has changed. You don't need to highlight it social, political, psychological, not needed. First thing. Second thing, if you're really bound by the idea that I have to give headings and subheadings, then what should be the ideal way? Okay, what should be the ideal way? To which I can suggest this. If you are like starting with a given essay, and in which you are giving, like, let's say, headings and subheadings, you should be writing it in such a manner that it is very engaging, it is very effective. Okay, like for example, suppose you have to write suggestion or way forward. You're writing the silver lining is dot dot dot. So hence the silver lining is dot dot dot, rather than suggestion or way forward. So you can see in the newspapers, sometimes the guest like editorial articles, in the guest editorial articles, this is how they give an insight related to the introduction or the conclusion or the in between body. So notice the language, how engaging it is, or how it is a gist of the para. So if you're like interested to give any such heading or subheading, then you can go ahead with, but see to it, it is creative and engaging. Again, it should not be like social, political, too direct, I mean, if you have to write something direct, it's better don't write. Change the para, we'll understand the idea has changed. Simple. And if you are hellbound to write and like a heading or a subheading, see to it, it is a gist, it is abstract, it is thought provoking, it is creative, it is a hint point of the entire content. Then it will make a difference. All right. Yes. Now further as we move ahead. So any doubt so far? Any doubts with respect to what has been taught? I hope it is understood well, it is received well, right? Now, with respect to this, Anirvan, you have asked, While writing in the given space, many times I cannot fit some words within the same line. So I have to write it with a hyphen. Maintenance. Does it affect the essay? No, not at all. Not at all. But if you have to write maintenance, it will be always advisable first write maintain, then hyphen, and then NC, whatever you're writing. So know how to break open the word. It looks like chunks, the two balanced chunks. It looks like that, but it doesn't make any difference if you have to break the word and change the para. Sorry, change the line. It doesn't make any difference. All right. Any other questions associated with do's and don'ts? This is your time. This is your time to ask people related to do's and don'ts, because this is the area where a lot of students have a substantial number of doubts. So I'm open to address them if there are any. I would be again showing you something like, let us see, is there the question paper? Just a second. The 27-year question paper, I had downloaded it, but I can't see it. So you can just ask. Meanwhile, I'll just work it out. No, I can't see it. Maybe someone deleted it. No worries. I can show it with respect to the day one slides whereby we have the questions. So I'll just take you back to the day one slide in this given situation. Where is the day one slide now? Yeah, see here. Here is the 27-year question paper. So with respect to this, what I exactly wanted to show to all of you, see this. There is this question which all of you can. Is it necessary to write title? What is title, Nayana? Sorry, Naya. I cannot understand. What is title? I mean, like, are you saying that starting the essay towards the beginning of the essay, should I note down the topic of the essay? Are you asking that? Yes, you should. When you're starting the essay, you should write down the topic, and after that, you should start paraphrasing it. And if you're talking about title as heading, subheading, I have already explained. If there is any other meaning to title, kindly be little elaborate, Naya. I will be able to explain that. If the idea, I think about the topic, but I can't memorize proper words, that then what should I do? Work on your vocabulary in that case. Okay, Biswajit. If you have an idea about the topic, but you can't recall, first is, it's not memorize. Memorize is when you are trying to remember something, means when you are like seeing something and like repeating it on the loop so that it becomes a part of your memory, then it is called memorize. But when something is a part of your memory and you are trying to remember it, you don't write the word memorize, you write the word recall. Okay, recall. Okay, so that's how you have like pointed expression anyway. So if you know an idea but you can't recall the right set of words, start working on your vocabulary, because there will be hundreds and thousands of competents with whom you are competing in this exam who will not have that problem. This is competition, my dear. Anything which is pulling you down should be worked upon. This can happen then in GS also, or it can happen in optional also, that you know the content but you're struggling with the language. Then how will you cope up with all the other papers? Essay is just one of them, because this question is symbolic of all areas, not just essay. This problem can prevail in all areas, and there is no shortcut to how to work upon the vocabulary. It is a continual phenomena, a daily based phenomena, and every student should indulge in that. How to work upon the expression, the language, the word limit continually on daily basis. What kind of exercises should be entertained on the basis of which we can build upon the vocabulary per se, right? So this is what we all can suggest. So I hope that's understood, Biswajit. Okay. You said that we shouldn't intriguing the point, rather to write it main points of the topic. But ma'am, sometimes I will not be able to derive the key points of the topic, or don't able to recall the main points of the topic. That time I try to write related points of the topic, not just one. In that situation, what should I do? I mean, into what I can sense, because there are again a lot of grammatical errors in the sentence formation, and you have to work on that as well. Okay. So we shouldn't intriguing the topic. I mean, what does this mean, intriguing the topic? Interrogating the topic, questioning the topic, do you imply that? Because you cannot intrigue a topic if you know the meaning of the word intrigue. Anyway, so write its main points well. What I can sense is you are again reflecting upon the possibility of, I would say, paraphrasing, right? And you're talking about the possibility of writing titles and subtitles as key points. Probably that's what you aspire to inquire. If that is your inquiry, Pintu, then in that situation, that's what I said. You don't need to bother to write heading and subheading, titles and subtitles, as if I put it in the language of Naya. So don't need to write title and subtitle. You just can change the para and that's it. You have started with the topic, you've written the title of the essay, and you are changing the para and the ideas are changing. Simple. Why are you bothering to write heading and subheading or title or subtitle? This instruction which I gave, it was for those students who are like hellbound, no, I want to give a heading or subheading. It was for them that I said that write something creative then, if you really have that power. Otherwise, you don't need to write heading and subheading continually, para after para. It's not necessary, it's not needed. Even by changing the para, you can write something which is thought-provoking, which is interesting, which is engaging, right? Ma'am, title we write are beginning the essay, concise summary of our essay. Well, with respect to whatever the student has written, this given segment, title we are at the beginning of the essay. So title we write, we are beginning the essay. Are you implying introduction? If you are implying that after writing the title of the essay, like let's say this is the title, farming has lost the ability to be a source of subsistence for majority of farmers in India. Suppose this is the title or the topic on which you are writing the essay. After this, just start writing the introduction after changing the para. I mean, you've written this and then start off with the introduction. You don't need to write down introduction. Okay. If you really want to write, no, after writing this, I want to start with heading and subheading, then in that situation, you can just work on something like why to bother about the farmers. Okay, how are farmers the backbone of the country? Question mark. You're responding to that. Something like that. Again, like the next para. So, how does the intervention add a meaningful chapter to Indian economy? And then you're writing something like that. So, if someone is talking about heading, subheading, it should be something like that. And presently, understanding or gauging my sense of understanding with respect to the nature of questions and the grammatical errors stuffed up in your question, that is there. And that's okay. It's like perfectly fine till the time you're motivated to work on this language. I will not encourage all of you to reflect upon title and subtitle. No. And if you're thinking title and subtitle, like first I'll write introduction and then write intro, that's kiddish. Do away with writing introduction. Straight away after writing the topic, okay, then start off with the essay. Every time you have to change, keep changing the paras per se. Biswajit, with respect to how to work upon the vocabulary, I have dedicated almost 1 hour worthy component of the lecture which will be discussed tomorrow, not today. Okay. Today I want to discuss types of introduction and conclusion. So you will get to understand how to work upon the vocabulary. It's not a 5 minutes exercise because we are discussing essay. It's not a GS class that I just give you 2-3 tips, work on these and your vocabulary will be fine. I'll explain this in great detail, how systematically a student can work upon the vocabulary. All right. When I conclude any answer, I struggle with summarizing the topic. What can be done in this? Well, if you struggle with the summary of the topic, the summary statement, just try to recall what all segments you have written and pick the keywords of it, simplify the meaning and make a sentence out of it. Suppose you have discussed education, you have discussed the challenges related to education, the interventions that have been done, all the given types of breakthroughs that have been created. There is a way forward to go and there have been other kinds of challenges. So in a simple language, you can always write that the multifarious challenges that we have experienced associated with education have been addressed so far with multiple government interventions. Yet, there is a long way to go, full stop. That's how you complete it. So that comes again with practice. Practicing is the key. There is no shortcut to practice. All those students who are in the habit of only reading notes, reading books, reading things online, reading and only reading, and not indulging in thinking and writing, you are not preparing for this exam. I have never ever seen in the history of my 15 years career of teaching that any student who was only reading cleared any exam, whether state commission or UPSC. In the absence of writing and writing practice, memory building, vocabulary development, fine chiseling of expression, all that does not happen. So if you really want to clear this exam, what is advisable is that please get very thorough with the given content, right? So this is what is advisable. And when you are, how do you get thorough with the content? Not just by reading it, capability to recall the points and enlisting it. That's what can be suggested. All right, so get into the habit of writing. Every day, every student should be writing 2 hours at least. Okay. If you are having trouble, start with 1 hour writing. Okay, make gist points of whatever you are studying. That way you will be working on the expressions, language. While reading any notes or material, pay attention how it has been written, how the sentence formation has been done, how the language has become engaging, how one point is leading to the other, right? So that's how you will get inspired by language as well. In creating anecdotes, is it necessary to attach it with new reality? No, it's not necessary. So any usage of name is creating character is prohibited? No. I'll be talking about it in types of introduction. Subhashri, just like in a short while, as I get through with all these questions, you'll get to know what are the do's and don'ts of anecdote. There, if still questions are there, feel free to ask it then. I will be elaborating upon those segments as well. After organizing all the points during brainstorming, can we use them as subpoints to elaborate them further in the para? Yes, Brunald, that's what I had suggested. That if after brainstorming and all the subpoints that you have created from brain mapping, after that, when you are paraphrasing it, it can be written in a flow, like one para leading to the other, without necessarily putting points, subpoints, etc. Okay. But just in case you still want to put subheadings, so-called subpoints, okay. So first, if you want to say subpoints as 1, 2, 3, 4, again mistake. You don't need to use 1, 2, 3, 4. Paraphrase the entire information in a flow, in a logical sequence. If the word subpoint is what you imply by A, B, C, D or 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's not permissible. That's not permissible. Because the moment you're writing an essay in a formal way, this is not the right way to write an essay. Second, if you imply to say subpoints as heading, subheading, then recall the gist of the given point and then try to provide it if you want to do a subheading segment. But if subpoint, the word subpoint, if that implies enlisting the points, no, I just prohibited it towards the beginning of today's session when I was discussing do's and don'ts. How to work on vocabulary. Okay, good, Pami. I am quite impressed by this fact that a lot of you are now curious to work upon your vocabulary. The pieces of instruction that I give, I want all of you to work on it, um, as I would be suggesting it tomorrow. All right. So just have patience. Tomorrow is the day when we'll be discussing about how to work on the language aspect, which is backbone of an essay or any answer, whether it's a written answer or whether you're appearing for the interview. Because only when you have power of language that you can express yourself effectively. And please remember, like every single student is trying to work on the given aspect of expression. And don't think that just because you are located, maybe someone has been educated from Bengali medium school or has been located in a disadvantageous area in the childhood whereby there was no proper focus on English. I understand that that is a problem perennially present across India. If you have been any such student who has experienced this problem, please understand you are not alone. There are students from Bihar, from eastern Uttar Pradesh, studying from Hindi medium till standard 10th, switching to English medium and then struggling with the same. There are Tamil medium students, Telugu medium students, Gujarati medium students who suffer from the same problem, Punjabi medium students suffering from the same problem. So majority of them, they have this problem. They think in their mother tongue. They think in the first language, which is their vernacular language. They mentally translate it into English and then they start writing. So this is not something which is like a unique problem that you are suffering from. But in the same situation, a lot of them continually work towards enhancing their like I would say expressions, strengthening their approach, improving upon their language, the content, and the breakthroughs that they can create through it. Again, when I'm discussing about this given subsegment, I can probably empower you with one more piece of insight if you can understand that. Okay, and what is it that I can probably empower you with? So, with respect to this given idea, or with respect to this given subsegment, when we are working upon this area, what I would be like substantiating with respect to this is, students. Okay, I'll give you an example. There was this student Ranjit. So what happened was that he like cleared the prelims and he went to mains and he did not make it, and that was his second attempt. So what happened was that he came forward and then he said that, ma'am, I have gauged the problems related to my content and the way I'm writing it. I have identified what problems I suffer from. I was like, oh, good, that's great, because there are very few students who are able to actually understand the problems that they are suffering from. So if you're able to understand that, that's a mark of a smart person. It's like, yes, ma'am, and along with all the problems that I suffer from, I do suffer from poor handwriting. Like, okay, I took it casually, mind it. As a teacher, I was like, yeah, the handwriting is kind of messy, but he's like, ma'am, you know what? I do understand every time you used to say, I get confused between these words or this, because his M and N was too cursive. It used to, like, get inside each other. And then the E was also like that. C was also like that. So it's like, it's sometimes very tough to identify your handwriting. He said that, ma'am, I have joined a handwriting class online. I was like, what? After a month, this is what he says when the mains he could not clear it. So he was like, I've joined a handwriting class for a month and I've started working on my handwriting consciously. I know you will say it's a wastage of money. Why did I pay like 1,000 or 2,000, whatever he had paid? So why did I pay for handwriting class? But ma'am, the thing is, when I pay some amount to someone, the person becomes answerable to chase me, to constantly follow me, and to look into the possibility whether I'm completing my assignments and exercises regularly or not. And every day, any topic that I'm studying, I have to write it in 1 hour. And whatever I'm writing, I have to write it speedily. And I have to write it consciously, paying attention on specific alphabets. So I think that it is a necessary exercise. Trust me, to begin with, I was not very concerned, and I'm being very honest, dry honest with you. I was not very concerned about why a student has joined a handwriting class, nor I was very, like I would say, satisfied with this, because I was like, oh, this is the time to work on the content. Why is the fellow working on the handwriting? it's not very like important, because we teachers get immune to poor handwriting. And in one page, if I'm getting stuck with one word or two, it's not a big deal. Still, the content is copable. You can somehow make an insight or an idea about what he's written. So I was not, trust me, very like very I would say bothered, or I was not putting my thought behind it, that what impact it can have. But the very next month, he comes up and he shows me his copy. Okay, his copy, that how he has worked on his handwriting and what is the impact before after effect. Okay, the way a person goes to gym, and after a month, after regular gymming, exercising, eating healthy, eating clean, the kind of transformation that undergoes in a person's body, and the before after images that they show, right? Anyway, so that is what, like, he was showing. So when I saw, okay, and when I was like reflecting upon the content, I was like, wow, that's something like which probably you cannot find on an average. Anyway, so I was just going through the content, and as I was reading it, I was going through it. After reading it, I was like, oh wow, this is something good, or this is something like impressive, and the person has like learned in leaps and bounds. I saw that it was pleasing, the handwriting was legible, it was clean and clear. And then he said, but ma'am, if, like, let us say some answer was not making sense, and the examiner subconsciously also deducted half marks, and out of 20 questions in GS, if he just deducted half marks 3 or 4 times, so I lost 2 marks per paper. 4 GS papers I lost, like, ma'am, 8 marks. 2 optional papers added 10 marks. Then further, the essay paper, there is a dedicated space like 4 to 5 marks related to presentation. I can lose marks over there. So almost like 13, 14 marks I was losing only because of handwriting without even realizing it. And that is something which is hidden. If some examiner was really getting agitated, the person would have consciously cut more marks. So something which was hidden and something which was explicit. I went into thinking. I was like, yeah, that's so very true. It's like, ma'am, and I lost my mains, like from the cutoff, I had just 5 marks less. Probably with improved handwriting, I will be able to make it next year. Next year, he cleared his mains, he went to the interview, he got into like allied services, but he did get into the list. I'm just giving you this insight. This is how your competitor is working. Competitors across years are working. They are identifying their problems, their drawbacks in their preparation, in their journey, and after identifying the drawbacks, which are exclusive and which other competitors might not be suffering. That's why on Telegram, here, there, you'll never find students talking about handwriting specifically, vocabulary specifically. No, they won't be talking about it. Okay. But what you all can find related to this given area is this, that students, when they are not into, I would say, a dedicated possibility of like working towards a specific area, but every child is unique with his or her potential. So handwriting is someone else's issue. Vocabulary is also an issue which is not common for all, but it is, I would say, quite rampant a problem with those civil servants or civil services aspirants who have not worked on their spelling or their grammar consciously for more than 5 or 7 years. Means after standard 7 or 8, they have not worked towards it. As a science student, it never bothered the examiner what is the nature of sentence formation of the student. And it is now that while reading your statements, your nature of enquiry, I can sense that who is struggling with which aspect of grammar. Okay. So how to improve grammar? Pintu had already suggested that few lectures back. That's why I always request online students, please be present at all times when I talk. I had suggested you can buy Wren and Martin, the book. Okay, it is a high school English grammar book, PC Wren and Martin's book. You can purchase that book. It is available online and it's a high school English grammar book. Along with that, the key also comes. Purchase the key as well. Do not read the instructions. Part 3 of the grammar book is dedicated to common errors. If you are not going for like this one of the students said, ma'am, can I not refer SL Doshi? I was like, yes, that's also a very good book, but it's a fat book and it's good for SSC CGL students. But probably for UPSC students, it can be little too much. Okay. But if you have time, why not? Okay. So any good grammar book can do. But do not start with reading the instructions, rules, regulations. Start solving the exercises directly. As you solve the exercises, easier questions you will be able to do. There will be questions you will be confused, encircle. There will be questions you don't know, encircle, solve all. Whatever you do, solve all. And then match the key. Then while matching with the key, you will see that few questions which you thought you know, it is correct, you have made it incorrect. Few questions you are confused about, few are correct and few are incorrect. And third category, questions which you did not know, okay, they are incorrect or few of them are also correct. So there will be three categories of how your answer got solved. Then read the rule books or the instruction which is given in the chapter. Because as a child, reading the instruction and solving was good. But today you have to evaluate and identify what is the pattern of mistake that you have a tendency to do. Because now what you understand is spoken English. If I say what is the grammar rule, you won't know. But you'll be like, it is sounding correct, like I am loving it. It sounds correct, but grammatically it's incorrect. Any emotion based statement cannot have ing. I love it, not loving it. Okay, I feel for you, not I am feeling. Feeling, if I'm using it will be a noun. I have feelings for you. Feelings. Okay, so these are some basic nuances of grammar. And students create a mistake because consciously they have not worked on their grammar for ages. So if you are one of those students, any one of you who's struggling with like the component of grammar, this is advisable. Please go ahead with solving the chapters and then reading the instruction. After solving the chapters, committing mistakes, when you read the rules, regulations, it stays with you. Then you identify that why something went wrong, how you have established a pattern of thinking, and what ought to be thought, how it ought to be framed. Okay, so that's how you understand that. Okay, so when writing the story, it is better to use the story from our personal experience. Well, Nayan, there are different types of anecdotes. I'll be discussing that. Dear Dibyendu, the question you are raising, few minutes back, one of your friends, Biswajit, had raised the same question. Had you been present and alert, you would have realized that he is echoing the emotions of your soul. Just 15 minutes back, same question was raised by Biswajit. Maybe at that time you might not be alert, attentive, okay, or you might not have joined the session. Nonetheless, I am committed to explain the same to you. So as you are raising that there are a lot of points in your mind, but you are unable to express it properly due to absence of or lack of like vocabulary, this is the same question which Biswajit had said. So to which I said that the problem of not being able to recall the right set of words is due to lack of rich vocabulary. And how to fix the issue of vocabulary, a dedicated session would be taken tomorrow. Please don't be absent, be present at all times, join the session in time. While the 2-hour session is going on, be alert. You know, when I take mains classes, sometimes for offline students, and when they have to write the mains exam just a month later or 2 months later, whensoever, whatever is the time, especially when there is 2 or 3 months time, and it's like July end or something, and then they have to write the or first week of July they have given the prelims and they are waiting for the result, they have time in hand. In those situations, I have taken sessions without break, trust me, without break, for 5 hours non-stop, whereby I kept drinking water, students kept drinking water, and I kept explaining by and by and by, because they were also running short of time. Because when you have 2 months left for the mains and you are very sure you are writing the mains, you want someone who just is ready to fight with you, run with you, explain you as thoroughly as possible, encapsulating all important areas and then completing the given subsegments, right? So in that given situation, when I was like, empowering the students, I realized that the more closer you are to the challenge, the greater your level of attentiveness is. So they never complained, ma'am, why not a break? Rather, I should have complained because it was not my exam and I deserved a break to drink water, to eat something, something like that. But I sensed, for me, it's lifetime, a regular affair. For them, it's once in a lifetime opportunity. So for them, every single minute counts. If I can enhance my stamina and go ahead for a 4.5 session, 5 hour session, let me do that. And I did it. I mean, somehow we, like both the parties, I or the students, we did not need a break at all. I'm sharing this because all those students who are unable to be attentive even for a 2 hour session, ask yourself how prepared you are. And ask yourself, are you living life on the edge? Means, are you thinking there is 1 year to appear for the exam? Or are you realizing every single day is bringing you closer to the exam? So every single day should be lived as if the exam is just next month. And you have to make the best out of every single day. Are you preparing like that? I'm saying this after seeing few questions of the students when I have to repeat the answers on the loop. It's not just one student. At least so far, like, today only, at least thrice it has happened that I have to repeat myself. It's like I'm saying, at 11 o'clock I said this, at 11:15 I said this, 15 minutes back I said this. So if this is happening continually, that means those students who are not visualizing themselves in the game, that they are actually writing mains, and they are writing mains within an year. Okay, if that is not a part of your conscience, your thought process, your psyche, it is then that this problem can erupt. So please work on your expression. I hope all of you are understanding the importance of it, right? Ask yourself how you have studied in your 10th board, 12th board, the alertness and attentiveness you have possessed. Get back to the same order. You have the potential. Now, to me, the best source is editorials where different ideas are discussed and implementation is value addition as content. Lately, I realized that my vocabulary is improving. Great, Subhashri, if that's happening. Yes, editorials play a very crucial role in improving a person's vocabulary along with critical analysis, insights, and new or latest points, addition to the facts, pre-existing ideas. Yes, all that does happen. So you can work on that. So I believe majority of the questions have been taken. Okay, there's one student, Subrata from Nadia. He has given a very long segment. Should we do brainstorming, brain mapping simultaneously? Yes. Brainstorming first, then brain mapping. And I had shared that in the previous session. Is both integral? Yes, it is like very, very integral. In brainstorming, you are too random. It happens just for 2-3 minutes. Then starts brain mapping, which is a structured way of thinking. And the structure has been discussed in the previous session. So, for doing the brainstorming part, we just need to brainstorming while keeping in mind about the brain mapping aspect. No. Brainstorming is when you memorize the topic, flood of ideas open. The floodgates open and all things start pouring in. That's brainstorming. You are not thinking about brain mapping at all. As you memorize the topic and keep memorizing the topic, every single word starts blooming. Ideas start blooming. Segments start reflecting. And you just have to enlist it all on the paper. That is what has to be done. So, if yes, no, it's not yes. So, the relevancy and this and that is already done, right? So, I had shared this because probably Subrata, you missed that aspect. I had shared that, how to do brainstorming. So, I had shared that after you memorize the topic in letter and spirit, the floodgate of ideas open. That was the very first thing which I spoke as we started with brainstorming. Probably you remember the rest of brainstorming, but not the first idea. I hope this recalling helps. If separate aspect, then what will be the time division? There's no time division. Brainstorming is a short-lived phenomena. If you are not well read, it will be just for 30 seconds or 1 minute. If you are a well read person, it can last for 3 to 4 minutes, but not more than that. So as the points, they keep rushing like hoarding, they are like super speedy and you're just noting down, quickly. So that will happen for some time, barely like from few seconds, like 30 seconds up to 3-4 minutes. But slowly and steadily you will see that your brain is like slowing down, relaxing down. The speed and the haul of ideas, we can say the rush of ideas will start stopping down and you will start falling into structured thinking. The moment you see that you're falling into structured thinking, then you are good to start with brain mapping. So brainstorming is a super speedy process. One. Second, when the hall of ideas is happening, and as the ideas, they keep overhauling all the things that you know and you can perceive. In the process, as the speed starts declining, ask yourself from WH components: how, what, why, when, where. After that's done, ask like from the perspective of how would famous personalities or noted people react upon the same for you. Start explaining from their perspective, note it down, and then you move ahead with the rest of the components. Right? I hope, Subrata, that's done. And I hope all the queries have been taken care of. Right? Now, moving ahead further as we are substantiating this given area, we start with types of introduction. Okay, before that, I had shown you this because suppose you have the component of farming has lost its ability, okay, to be the source of subsistence for majority of farmers in India. If you see this topic and I ask you what are the problems or what are the challenges associated with this given subsegment, okay, what are the problems or what are the challenges associated with this given subsegment, the moment I ask this from all of you, okay, what probably can be understood by each one of you is that, like, you all can like recall some immediate points which you have studied in GS economy. And once you are recalling all the points of GS economy, why farmers are sinking into subsistence or they are even struggling to survive, struggling for their subsistence, as you recall all the points, as you reflect upon all the points related to that given area, okay, after that given subsegment, you can further move ahead and you can connect it with all the list of problems that you know. Here is the list of problems. So once that the, like we can say, the immediate points studied in GS are over, then start connecting it with these areas, the common regular points, so that suppose you are thinking of 3 or 4 points, after the exhaustion of those 3 or 4 points, you can tally these and you can try to understand if these points are relevant or not. Don't necessarily stretch up the logic and try to make a point relevant. That is unnecessary. Okay, कान पूछ पकड़ के मिलाना नहीं है. Only when a point is making sense, then you can write about it. Like, let's say climate change. So can climate change be associated with farmers suffering for their subsistence? Yes, because climate change can lead to, and destruction of nature can lead to like decline in production of the crops. So that's there. Large scale conflicts and wars. Now you'll start thinking that, oh, in border area the farmers suffer. Okay, don't start thinking out Russia and Ukraine, for the simple reason, if you see the nature of like the topic is talking about India. The topic is associated with farmers who are in India. So you don't have to talk about Russia, Ukraine. That's why I said don't write things just because you know. Write only when that is relevant. First. Second, Indo-China war or like Indo-Pakistan war, it's not a regular phenomenon. So talking about farmers, the question is in general, farmers have lost their ability to be, like farming has lost its ability to be a source of subsistence for majority of farmers, majority. And majority of the farmers do not suffer from large scale wars and conflicts in India. So just avoid. That's why you don't need to necessarily connect a point. Okay, इसीलिए कहा जबरदस्ती कान पूछ पकड़ के नहीं मिलाना है. Then you can see religious conflict, again that is too far stretched. Leave. Poverty, yes. Lack of government accountability, transparency and corruption, yes, this can be connected to the topic. Lack of safety, security, well-being, yes. Lack of education, yes. Lack of political freedom and instability, yes. Lack of political freedom takes away their power to negotiate, for, I would say, more interventions or initiatives. So that's something which can be connected. Again, lack of food and water insecurity, yes, that can be connected. Lack of economic opportunity and unemployment, yes, that can be connected. Then all the other 6-7 points which I had written on the board in the previous week, and I encouraged all of you to take it down. You can recall from that also, like cyber crime, cyber security, well, not really needed. Naxalism, terrorism, yes, Naxalism is a problem. So you can connect with Naxalism. Child labor, yes, it is a problem. Overpopulation, yes, overpopulation will lead to fragmentation of land. Okay, drug abuse, you can connect with it. Today, the farmers of Punjab, the farmers of, we can say, even Jammu and Kashmir nowadays, you can see that because it is associated with the golden triangle and golden crescent in Manipur, if you can see that, right? So you can connect with that and you can just associate with the problem, and you can understand that because it is getting connected to the global corridor of drugs, the drug supply, that's how this problem further blows up out of proportion for the farmers in those regions. So you can recall the points which are relevant to the topic, those which are irrelevant you can leave. So suppose from GS you have got 6-7 problems, and then rest you are picking from here. Here also you are able to tally 4-5 fresh problems. Clubbing it, you are having 10 to 12 problems. You can write 2 paras rather than just 1 para talking about the challenges and problems of farmers in India. Okay, so remember this list. This list will help you to create ideas when you are running short of it, because sometimes related to challenges and problems we have relatively lesser points, and later when we are able to connect it from a common list, the capability to create becomes sharper. All right. Should we cut the whole brainstorming part that will write in rough space after completing the exam? Shubham, if you're saying that should we cut the whole brainstorming part means, I mean, because again the language is quite insufficient to explain what you want to ask. So there are two interpretations to the question. One interpretation is, should you do away with brainstorming means you should not do brainstorming at all. No, don't do that. Brainstorming is the only tool to help you create ideas, because in the previous session I had explained it to you that how you were able to connect the topic of sports education or the topic of nutritional education, the topic of civic behavior, okay, sanitized behavior with education, only because you were thinking of brainstorming. By, like, thinking of cuss words, you could think of gender sensitization as a sub segment of education. So brainstorming helps you to go creative. It helps you to arrive at out of box ideas. It helps you to arrive at the soul or the spirit of essay faster and quicker. So if your question implies that should we cut the whole brainstorming part from the perspective of not doing at all, it's not advisable. Because if you do that, your essay will be too dry. It will be just like any regular essay any second student is writing from GS point of view, because everyone reads the same facts, figures of GS. So the creative and the subliminal expression will be lost. First. Second, if you're asking that should I strike down brainstorming after I have done it in the rough area, if that's the question, then for that, Shubham, what I can say is you have to strike down everything. There will be 4 pages you will be engaging with. Brainstorming, that also needs to be cut down and written, please omit, but after you have written the essay. Once the essay has been written, completed, before submitting it, you have to cut down, like brainstorming and write down please omit. Brain mapping, you have to write please omit. The rough structure of introduction, conclusion, that has to be struck down, written please omit. The organization, one sheet dedicated to organizing the points, that organization of points has to be cut down and written please omit. I think that is bare minimum, which I think every student should exercise. I mean, isn't it implicit? Were we not doing it during school days? I mean, like, I did it. That's why I'm saying so, right? So any rough page, 1 or 4 pages of rough work, everything was cut down. But before submitting the paper, not while writing the essay or writing the answer, because that way the striking down will create some confusion if it is running through a word. So that's what. Anyway, so moving ahead with types of introduction as we are substantiating about it. So I hope you are understanding the importance of these types of problems and stuff. Okay, so after dealing with this part, the types of introduction, as we start with this one. The popular types of introduction, what popular types of introduction have you used in the past, people? What are the ways in which you have introduced the content for yourself? That's the question which I'm raising for all of you. So I think one method which you must have used is definition. Then I think you must have used quotation. After definition and quotation, I think you must have used the given component associated with uh, other than definition and quotation, historical background. After this one, I think you must have used anecdote. Anecdotes can also be of different types. Anecdotes can be imaginary. They can be based on real life incidents. They can be based on childhood stories. They can be based on mythology. We can consider few other types of like, okay, no one has sent so far types of introduction. No problem. I'll continue. So you can also raise questions. Raise question or questions. You can also start it with some engaging, interesting facts. Engaging, interesting facts which are there in news and relevant to the topic. So you can start with that as well. Right? You can also start it with like a generalized overview to specific discussion. And there can also be a component related to conversation. Right? This bit is what is necessary, as all of us can see. So definition, quotation, historical background, anecdote, raising a question or questions, engaging or interesting facts, generalized overview to specific discussion, and then finally conversation, right? So this is what we need to reflect upon. Build up stories, hinting the points, hinting the topics, taking clues from newspaper articles. Great, great, Shubhash. Regarding these types of introduction, how to make these introductions engaging or interesting enough. Let us understand as we are building upon each one of them. So first, like, I'll take up definition and quotation and substantiate the same for all of you. So related to this, if I'm discussing about, like, let's say, what is it? Good character is necessary for holding a high position in civil services. Yes. If we write something like a good character becomes necessary for civil servants in high position to face modern day challenges like this, okay, as highlighted by the phrase Sheelam Param Bhushanam. Is this right way? Yes, that's a right way to put the quotations, Vaishali. Okay, no doubts about it. Okay, that's how in fact you engage with a quotation. Sometimes you write the quotation, explain it. Sometimes you engage with an idea, support it with a quotation. Both the ways are correct. All right. Now, so with respect to this, as we are moving further ahead, okay. So in the process of moving in this given area, you can substantiate something more. And what can you substantiate it with? So first let me take the component of definition, or along with definition, as I said, quotation. See to it that when you are giving definition or quotation, it is relevant. Okay, It is, we can say, engaging. It is fresh. When it is engaging and fresh, it becomes interesting, which is one of the core aspects of essay. If you recall the syllabus, in the syllabus, this is what the examiner has said, right? So the moment I'm saying definition or quotation, it should be relevant, engaging, and fresh. What do I imply? Okay, so like let us say, for example, the moment few students write down government of the people, right, for the people, by the people, what happens? What happens after reading this? The moment you read this, you're like, oh my God. After reading this given subsegment, you're like, why is the child not writing something fresh? If this quotation is given, or in the form of a definition, if it is given by a student who is in standard 5, you applaud. Wow, quoting like Abraham Lincoln, such a young child, great. If a student is writing this in standard 8th or ninth, you're like, ah, fine, good. But if someone who has like completed graduation, appearing for civil services exam, still sticking to government of the people, for the people, by the people, you're like, why can't you remember a fresh definition? Something which is more impressive, more engaging, creates like, some kind of impressive breakthrough, right? So I'll give you two examples related to this one. So first example I'll give you is that of one of the students. She is working in the Delhi Secretariat, Divya. So she came up with this expression related to democracy. Actually, in the mains answer writing program, what I encouraged all of them is to identify some creative expressions which are meaningful, which are wholesome, which are engaging, which are fun, and which are thought provoking. So I said that why don't you come up with a list of definitions related to topics like ethical governance, democracy, education, like, concerns pertaining to justice, okay, and definitely this one. So when I said that these are the topics which are often repeated either in GS or in essay, if you have a list of like 5 or 10 wholesome sentences or quotations, it will be very helpful for you to express effectively in the exam. So when I said that, a lot of students got into the working mode. So this girl Divya, she came up with a very interesting example related to this topic of democracy. She wrote, democracy is treating others the way nature does. That's it. So how does nature treat us? Equally, irrespective of our caste, gender, religion, region, isn't it? Like, nature treats us equally. So the moment this question was asked, that democracy is treating others the way nature does. So this thought-provoking statement, the moment I read it, it was short, but it was wholesome. It was relevant. It was fresh. It's like, wow, this is so good, right? So whenever you're writing any kind of quotation, see to it that it is something which is generating a sense of freshness, not like you're reading the quotation and like, huh, next what? Or okay, fine, what next? That should not be the mode of engagement. And we can say the inspiration can come from anything. Okay, when we are speaking of this given possibility associated with, like, let's say quotations, what I imply to say, you can get inspired by anything. The source of quotation can be anything. Like, if I'm saying, like, what can be the source, it can be lifted from, like, let's say news articles. It can be lifted from pieces of literature. When I say pieces of literature, I imply to say you can pick like something from a poetry, something from a drama, something from a novel or a short story, anything. Okay, novel, short story, anything, etc. It can be from a movie or a TV series. It can be lifted from, like, let us say, something like, I can suggest maybe some advertisement, anywhere, anywhere. The only thing is that it should be wholesome. It should be like something that you read and you're like, wow, this is something that was needed. All right. So when you are able to create something like that, it's then that you are like reading the quotation and like, wow, this was thought provoking, that this was engaging, right? For example, like let's say someone has to write on sports and the person is writing all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. You read it and you become dull. Like, what is this? Yeah, like in childhood it was fine, this quotation, and starting an essay with this one was fine. But how about you mature to the level whereby you are quoting Swami Vivekananda and you're writing that according to Swami Vivekananda, if anyone wanted to experience God, it was easier to experience Him in a football field rather than reading the religious scriptures. Now, the moment you think about this sentence, it is easier to experience God, okay, in the football field rather than while reading religious scriptures. You are somewhere like, you're startled. You want to think. You're like, oh, what an amazing statement. How? Why? I mean, like, how come? Like, what is there in the football field which is needed to arrive at God, which is needed to experience God, which is probably missing while reading religious scriptures? Like how the comparison has been done. You end up engaging, thinking, isn't that the purpose of writing a quotation in the introduction? The purpose of the quotation is not to just write something. It is like Gagar mein sagar bharna, means world of wisdom presented in a gist. The purpose of writing an introduction with a quotation is to leave the examiner thinking. And when the person is thinking, the person is curious. When the person is curious, the person wants to read more. So that is the purpose of starting with a definition or a quotation. So let the definition or the quotation be wholesome, all encapsulating. Let it be something which is encouraging the person, the examiner, to think, right? I'll show you one more essay if possible. So, like, this is the. Bhai, khul jao. Okay. So, with respect to this, I'll show you. There is this essay of one of the students, which we will be like reflecting upon later, but presently just showing a part of it. See this. So, the topic was India of My Dreams. And in the topic of India of my dreams, with respect to democracy, this student ended up writing something quite engaging, which I want all of you to see. So, with respect to the topic of democracy, this student wrote this given expression. India of my dreams will be a young nation, a too democratic ship. Okay, probably it's like ship only written. No, setup is what is written. So, India of my dreams will be young nation, a true democratic setup with government of, now of is in capital, of the people, for the people, by the people. Unlike today, where it has denigrated to of the people, FAR, for the people, BUI, by the people. Okay. So when the student was writing, definitely he's a pre-COVID student. Okay. And when he was writing, the very idea, the very purpose of writing this expression, which I just showed to all of you, was this basic insight that see how these students are engaging with the component of writing the introduction with meaningful quotations. Also, as I suggested in this given subsegment, that quotations can be from anything. Oh my goodness. I don't know what happened. Okay. So with respect to this, I can also say in this you can, so the quotation can also be self-created. Self-created. I can show you one of the essays which is written by Srushti. So Srushti Jayant Deshmukh, who is an IAS officer. You can probably see her essay and get that sense of inspiration. Just a second. Yeah, see this. So the topic was child labor, a necessary evil or just plain evil. And to this topic, what she has written? She has written, working with tools and teacups, the little hands move every day. For need and for survival, they are ready to walk every day. Some have an ailing sister, while some have a mother. To get home a penny, they get beaten by the other. Do these kids know they are losing their childhood? Question mark. Okay. So this is what you all can see. So it can also be self-created. When we are talking about like quotations or definitions, see to it what is the final purpose. The final purpose of quotation or definition is it should be wholesome, it should be engaging, it should be something which is associated with, I would say, like the possibility of like something which is rousing the interest, the possibility of like creating the component with a note that the examiner is left thinking and saying, oh yes, this is something which is brilliant. Now, after this definition or quotation as types of introduction, because when we are discussing about this, oh sorry, so when we are discussing about this given subsegment of types of introduction, we all can come up with what we had been discussing. So this chair, na बैठूं तो दिक्कत. The space is too cramped up. Anyway, this one. So with respect to this, we have, like I believe you all are able to understand that we have discussed this area, definition and quotation. Then comes the component of historical background. Now this is another sensational area. When I speak of historical background, see to it that the history is relevant, valid, and is published in your NCERT books or standard textbooks. Nowadays, a lot of rewriting of history is happening. You are neither an academician nor a champion of democracy with respect to plurality of views, opinions, and ideas, nor you are a think tank. So don't try to present any alter opinion which is not registered in the history books just by watching the YouTube sensational videos which are presented nowadays by like a lot of, I would say, YouTube content creators, okay, who claim, quote unquote, who claim to present a lot of ideas which they feel is correct and which they feel is validated. So what I would be suggesting to all of you is that do not manipulate with history. Do not try to present something which you have read in a WhatsApp message or a Facebook message. Try to write only that aspect as history which has been a part of your published content in standard history books. And historical background can like work as a massive, I would say, breakthrough if you are able to remember the given subsegment thoroughly. Okay, using punctuations like double or double, is it corrected? Okay, uh, again this is kind of incorrect expression, Sunanda, so I am unable to gauge what you are asking, but still, if you imply to say that for quotations, whether you should put inverted commas as single or whether you should like write it as double, because you have written using punctuation marks like double. Okay, so got it. You're saying like double interrogation mark, you should have written like this. Okay, so can we use punctuation marks? Like few students have this tendency that in WhatsApp or Facebook they write a sentence and they use double question mark, or they use double exclamation mark, or they write it and they use a mixture of marks. No, this is incorrect grammatically. The purpose is solved just by one. So you don't need to write double, triple, 4, 5, 7, 10. No, that's not how the formal way of writing English grammar is entertained. Okay, so no combination or double usage or triple usage of punctuation marks ought to be done. One thing. Second thing, with respect to quotations, if you really remember the content, then only put it in inverted commas. Okay, if you remember, then only put it Okay, then only put it under inverted commas when we speak of it. Okay, do not put under inverted commas if you don't remember each and every aspect of the quotation. Probably I should mention it. So like, let us say quotation with respect to inverted commas should be used only when you are quoting the person exactly. Okay, when a person is quoted exactly, all right, then only you should be using the inverted commas. Like suppose I'm saying according to Gandhi, and so according to Gandhi, suppose I remember exactly what he said, then I'll put a comma and quotation marks, dot dot dot. I'll keep writing what he has said, then put the quotation marks before that, full stop, and then quotation marks. That's how. But suppose I don't remember, then as Gandhi ji said, suppose as Gandhi ji had said that, and after that what I'll do is I'll just put a dash and underneath I'll write the sentence. But I'll not write it under inverted commas because I'm using my own expression. Suppose I remember parts of the expression, parts of words which he spoke. I'll write those words specifically under inverted commas, single inverted. Okay. So I'll just write those words in inverted commas which I remember as were exactly spoken by him, even if I don't remember the sentence. There is a third category of students who don't remember who said it. Okay. In that situation, what should be done? So you can just write down as popularly said. As popularly said, put a dash and then write it down. Okay. As popularly expressed. So said, expressed, okay, understood, whatever, and then put a dash, write it down. All right, great. You asked that, Sunanda, and I was able to discuss this aspect also. Otherwise, someone must have been like caught up with this given expression. Anyway, so under the component of types of like introduction, I was discussing about historical background. So under the component of historical background, see to it that under this given subsegment, historical background, please see to it that the expression is relevant, verifiable, okay, engaging, non-controversial. Because don't start the essay on a controversial note. Don't start on a negative note or a controversial note. So suppose you have to start, like let us say a given essay in which, like let's say you have to start the given topic, and like suppose it is related to globalization or diversity. So you want to talk about the aspect of globalization or diversity existing in India since times immemorial. So you can recall, like let's say you are thinking of Sarva Dharma Sambhava or Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Okay. So if the quotations that you are writing from history or any other source, if it is in another language, okay. So if the quote is coming from another language, in that situation, what you should do is please do provide the translation. Do provide the translation. The examiner is not bound to understand it if it is written in another language. Whether it is Sanskrit, whether it is Hindi, Odia, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, doesn't matter. Provide the translation, the meaningful translation of that specific quotation. All right, that is something which is essential for all of you. Okay. Along with this, when you are supporting the like quotation, so suppose you have written like Sarva Dharma Sambhava, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, then you are coming to medieval times, you are talking about Akbar, that why he is referred as Akbar the Great, because of his idea of Sulhe Kul, the idea of, like, you know, a common ibadat gah where everyone could worship. he removed the jizya. You can also talk about, like, when his stepmother, like the woman who was raising him after the death of his mother, he was actually raised by Pannadhai. No, sorry, Pannadhai, I said. He was raised by Mahamana Aga. So when she was like his foster mother, or the woman who took care of him, when she died, though she had plotted to get Akbar killed and replace him with her own son, that did happen. But despite that fact, he busted the plot, he killed her son, and he continued to respect her, though with a sense of, definitely a sense of distance, but he continued to respect her, provide her food, protection, and taking care of her needs. When she died, like a typical Hindu boy, for 13 days, he observed all the rituals which a Hindu boy observes when his mother dies. And he also got his head tonsured. Tonsure, you understand? Getting bald. Okay. So he got his head tonsured for the purpose of paying his respect and sitting for all the puja which a son sits for after the 13 days of death of the mother. So these are marks of, I would say, syncretism, the syncretic history that we have inherited over the centuries, which also strengthens the possibility of diversity and secularism in India. So be enriched with examples, relevant examples, verifiable examples, and quote them so that the essay starts on a positive note, not a controversial note. Okay. So history, it should be verifiable, correct, relevant, non-controversial. Okay. So this is what I can suggest. Can I use commercial advertisement tagline? Yes, you can. Okay. Yes, that can be done. Debate do. All right. So I hope all of you are getting some idea related to this given component of introduction. That's why I said introduction takes a lot of time when you are explaining it bit by bit. Okay. There's a shorter segment which I can probably highlight. This segment, from generalized overview to specific discussion. Okay. In this generalized overview to specific discussion, this is the writing style of NCERT. NCERT, or sometimes newspaper editorials. Newspaper editorials. What is the method of writing these kind of essays? The method is, first you present an overview of the entire essay, and then you start engaging with every single topic. So you'll see in NCERT, when a chapter starts, how does it start? So first an overview is given of the chapter, and then para after para, every single segment is explained in greater detail. All of you must have noticed that, right? So that is the style that we will continue with. That is the style that we will be writing if we are going ahead with this choice. One. Second, if you are let's say you are going ahead with this given subsegment, generalized overview to specific discussion, what can be further advised related to this given area is, when you are giving an overview of the given subsegment. Okay, in the process of giving the overview of the subsegment, you can also see sometimes in newspapers also the editors, the guest editors do that. They present an overview. What is the problem, the challenge, what are the subsegments, what are the potential suggestions, is what we are going to discuss, something like that. So an overview will be given, and then para after para, you will see that the person has given the historical background of the problem. Then in the next para, the person is discussing about critical challenges of the present. Then challenges which have simmered up from the past and have blown out of proportion in the present times. Then efforts which have been made so far in the next para. Then what more efforts need to be made given in the last para. And henceforth the person is concluding. But a gist of this entire bit was presented towards the initial goal. So NCERTs are written in this style, and other than NCERTs, newspaper editorials are written in this given specific style. Okay, so a generalized overview to specific discussion. I hope this is making sense. All right. So then we are left with some massive engagement. So what we have done is, so far we have completed this, and this. 4 subsegments I have completed, 4 are left. So I will continue with this discussion tomorrow, all right? And tomorrow I'll explain this types of introduction, then I'll discuss types of conclusion. And after discussing these two, I will work on vocabulary, how to build your sentence bank and word bank for GS as well as SE. All right. So thank you, all of you. Stay connected and be positive. Keep working. Thank you.